Good evening, everyone. Can you just type in a yes to let me know if you can hear me and see my screen, just as a sound check and video check? Now, while we're doing that, I would appreciate if you would read over the Nadex risk disclaimer. It is for your protection as well as ours. And basically, you should never trade with money that you cannot afford to lose. Okay, thank you, everyone, for letting me know about the sound in the video. Okay, for those of you that do not know me, my name is Gail Mercer. I'm the founder of Traders Help Desk. I actually started out trading Forex many years ago. Let's just leave it at that, okay? I have also been a speaker at the Volume conference that was held in Florida, Traders World, Traders Expo, TradeStation User Group. I do specialize in candlestick price formations, support, resistance in volume analysis. Now, I'm also the author of Trading Nadex Binary Options, Keeping It Simple Strategies, The New Trader's Guide to Trading Nadex Binary Options and Spreads, Trading Nadex Binary Options Using Currencies, Trading Nadex Binary Options and Spread Using Candlestick Patterns. All of those books can be purchased on Amazon.com. And before we get started tonight, I would like to invite you to visit my website at tradershelpdesk.com to learn more about me and the indicators that I use. Of course, if you have any questions after tonight's presentation, you can always contact me at gm@tradershelpdesk.com. Now, what I do to get started for the week, and I do this every Sunday, I actually look at anything that's going to affect the markets this week. For example, tomorrow, Canada has a bank holiday. Now, that means if you're trading the USD Canadian, then, that currency is probably going to be a little bit slow because it's a holiday in Canada. Now, also note, tomorrow evening, right before the Asia session opens, Fed Chair Powell will speak. Now, if you click on this little file folder over here, it will actually tell you what he is speaking about, so you'll know, okay, is this going to really affect the market or not? In this case, he's delivering a speech at the Financial Markets Conference, and yes, if he says something out of the ordinary, it could affect the markets. Now, the Aussie dollar also has the monetary policy meeting minutes tomorrow evening at 9:30 p.m. Now, on the British pound on Tuesday, you have the inflation report hearings at 4:30. I do want to point out all of these are New York time, okay? 10:15 on the Aussie, the RBA Governor Lau speaks. And then on Wednesday morning on the GBP, we have the CPI, and notice that is year over year. So that will probably have more of an impact because it's a yearly report. Then at 8:30 on the Canadian, we have the core retail sales, and then at 2 o'clock, we have the FOMC meeting minutes. Now, that will not be as volatile as like the FOMC typical meeting, but it can create volatility. Does that mean the Canadian would be weaker or USDCAD slower? It just means the USDCAD would be slower, Ed, because it is a bank holiday on Monday. Then on Thursday, we have on the Euro side, we have at 3:15 that morning, we have the French Flash Services PMI, the German Flash Manufacturing PMI, and the German Flash Services PMI. But the bigger one is the European parliamentary elections. They're already predicting those are going to be very volatile, and they occur Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So if you want to trade the euro, I suggest that you trade it maybe the first part of the week, but not the second part of the week, based on the market reports, okay? Then on Friday, you do have the British pound retail sales. Again, the elections are being held. and then you have the core durable goods on the US dollar side at 8:30 a.m. that morning. Okay, I would caution everybody to be very careful in any of the European currencies. That would be the euro and the British pound, because of the parliamentary elections. Okay, now I'm going to start, and this is what I do every week. I look at the weekly, the daily, and the 360. Okay, I always start out on the left-hand side of the screen. So in this case, you can see that on the Aussie yen, the one thing that actually stands out at me is the fact that this is now overextended to the downside. When I look at the daily, I see exactly the same thing. It is overextended. Okay, when I look down at the RSI is overextended. The ADX was right at the point of being overextended. So this tells me that we potentially have a move to the upside, and I would expect it to come back to this ATR. Okay, now if I anticipate that on the daily, in other words, I'm anticipating an upward movement, I would need to see something on the 360 that also confirms that. Unfortunately, it's not there yet, because what I would want to see is that this red plus sign actually moves below price and it will become blue. Price will typically go up. They will test this dot here. Then it will come back down and test for support. If support forms, that is when this is likely to actually begin its move back to this ATR. So this one would be on my watch list for this week. Now, the binary options on the Aussie yen do not open, I believe, until Monday at 8 a.m. Okay, so this is one for y'all to watch, maybe Monday or Tuesday. Once that retracement occurs, then it may go back into a trend trade, meaning it could go back down. Okay, so this is your counter trend trade, and then the back down to potentially take out this low would be your trend trade. Does everybody understand that? Now, I typically will zero down and continue zeroing down in time, like 360, 60, and a 15, until I can actually time that trade. But this is more longer term in the room. Okay? So let's go see what's going on in the Aussie dollar. The Aussie dollar, again, it is showing that it is overextended to the downside on the weekly, as well as the daily, as well as the 360. Now notice on this one, the RSI is not overextended on the daily chart, and neither is the ADX. So in this case, because this is on the 360, this is close to being overextended, as well as this one. This is one that I'm looking potentially to do maybe a 2-hour binary or even a daily if the setup comes in. Again, I would anticipate a retracement at least to this ATR. If it does start to tick up on this RSI, on this stochastics, we could potentially even get to this ATR. You also have to monitor your moving averages, because sometimes if it is a really strong trend, these moving averages will hold as well. Okay, but right now I would be anticipating it to go to the ATR here and over here. Of course, it would have to break through this one to be able to get to this one. Okay, any question on the Aussie dollar? Again, I think this is potentially a really good setup for later in the week. It could even come in on Monday. You just have to keep watching for it. Again, everything would be potential until that move comes in. What number is it? What do you mean, Jesus? Do you mean what's the ATR number? 69.85 on the daily. 69.18 on the 360. All right, let's go over and look at the euro yen. And on the euro yen, you can see this is approaching the point of being overextended, okay? But it is actually still moving down. Now, this one has developed a trend divergence here, and it is now going back to potentially test for resistance. When we come over here, we can see that we had the trend divergence here, okay? Then we have made a higher low here. What I would like to see again is for this 360, I want this red ATR to flip to blue, and I want them to test it for support. And then if that support holds, then I have more information, and then my belief would be, okay, it might come back to 123.87, okay? But those conditions have to be met first. And more than likely, if this is flipped to blue, which just means it goes from red, literally, that's above price, to blue, below price, I would think it's going to be about 122.27 or somewhere in that vicinity. Now, on the euro dollar, again, this is not one I would trade later in the week. Okay, if you want to trade it, you know, hopefully the trade comes in at the beginning of the week. I would not want to be in this during those elections. Here you can see that during this, all of this, where it's making lower lows, you're actually making higher lows in the stochastics. Now that's telling you that that trend is potentially weakening, okay? Then when you come over to the daily, you can see that same thing here where it was weakening. Now, the one thing that I would actually look at on this one is you can see that you have equal highs here, and you potentially, I believe, are making higher lows here, okay? I would actually connect it to this one. Now, if this forms a bullish bar, okay, it has the potential to go up to 1263, but it also has the potential to continue because this would make it an ascending triangle. Okay, that is potential right now. You still need to have that bullish bar, but with this being overextended, it is a potential. Okay, when you come over and you look at the 360-minute or the 6-hour chart, you also see here that you're making higher lows, excuse me, from when you compare to over here, yet this stochastics has come right back to that area, okay? That should not have happened. It shouldn't have taken that much power to get it back there. So there's a potential there for a hidden divergence pattern, okay? What would I like to see? This is where I would zero down in time to the 60 and the 15, and you'll probably see that this is going to be a blue ATR. They're going to go back and test that ATR. You know, that would be a potential 2-hour or a daily binary. And since this is on the euro dollar, you could even do a touch bracket. What I look at, because Nadex gives us so many different products to trade, which one has the best risk to reward ratio, you know, which one has the lower risk for this potential, okay? And that's really what you have to weigh out as a trader. Now let's go and look at the British pound yen. Now this one just broke through this ATR, and see how this ATR was blue and now it's red? Now I would anticipate that this would go back and test for a resistance area. In this case, I think they'll probably find resistance at the moving averages. They all kind of come together at 143.68. Now, why would I think that? Well, partly because look at the daily. You've got overextended to the downside on the stochastics as well as the ADX. The RSI is not far from being there, okay? So I think we're going to develop a bullish bar. It's going to have to get to probably 140.9 to actually give you that peak formation here, and that will potentially push it back up to this ATR, okay? When you go down to the 360, you've had divergence here. You just had another divergence because you're making lower lows, lower lows, lower lows, but the stochastics is not. And you're overextended on both of these, the RSI and the ADX. So that tells me that there is a potential to push this back to 141, potentially higher because of what's playing out on the daily as well. So to me, this is a, one that you might want to look at. Binary options on. You could even do potentially call spreads if you can time it right. Okay? Any questions on the British pound yen? Let's go look at the British pound dollar. Get all my lines off my chart. Okay, you can see that it just broke through this ATR here. I do think it may get down to 1.2555, okay? Now, when you look at the daily chart, again, you're overextended here, okay? This is just one of the 3 oscillators, okay? So this one, the most I would do is maybe a binary on this because you've only got one on the daily that tells you this could potentially go up to this ATR right here, okay? But then when you come down to the 360, notice that all 3 of them have lined up and they're all indicating oversold status, okay? This is when I'm going to zero down to 16 and 15 and expect an upward movement on that potentially, because I think it will potentially go back to this ATR. Now, the British pound is one. You can get a touch bracket, you can get a binary, or you can even do a call spread. But again, you need to confirm with those lower time frames that this ATR flips and that you get that test for support. Because remember, back to the ATR is your counter trend trade. Okay, once it gets to the ATR, going back down, that would be your trend trade. Okay, so you have to know, what your skill level is. I like doing both. It doesn't matter to me. If the market's moving, I want to trade it. Now let's go look at the USD Canadian. Now the USD Canadian has been stuck right at this ATR for quite some time. Okay. Last week I pointed out that we have the potential of a descending triangle, okay? It's still not there, okay? It just tells me that the Canadian is waiting on something. You can see, this one highlights it the best. It's just not doing anything. This one tells me this is a snake bite area. Now, why do I call it snake bite? Because I'm terrified of snakes. And if I identify that as a snake, I immediately back up from my screen, okay? I do not want to trade anything that looks like that on my RSI indicator, okay? Why? Because typically that's where I'm going to lose money, and I don't like snakes, so I back up, okay? So I'm not trading the USDCAD. I don't like the patterns that are developing. Not even looking at it. Now let's go and look at the Swiss franc. Now this is an interesting pattern because they pushed it low, but then it closed right up at the top, okay? Now some people would consider that a very substantial candlestick pattern. In my case, because this one is still heading down, I'm not too sure about that. I want to see a bullish bar come in on this before I say, hey, it might take out 0.0235. Now, when I look down to the daily chart, you can see that you were overextended and it is now going back up. I think that this moving average here may actually hold it, okay? But again, this is all potential. These are things I'm looking at. It could come back to here, or it could come all the way back to here, okay? It's not a trade that I want to get into because it is not a clear pattern, especially when you looked at the other ones. They were very clear patterns. To me, this is not a clear pattern yet, okay? And again, when you look at this one, you can see it's starting to head down. It really can't decide. I would think it's at least going to come back to this line, potentially this line. So on this one, do you see how it's giving mixed signals? Where this one is saying up, this one, well, maybe it will go up, but you don't know if it's going to be this one, or this one. And this one is saying no, down. It's giving you mixed signals. Don't trade it, okay? That's the best thing. Just don't even enter something that you can't decipher where that is coming from, okay? And in this case, just not giving you clear signals at all. Let's go look at the USDJPY. And this one is a bullish bar, very indicative that the next bar should be bullish, okay? This one is already heading back to this ATR here, okay? It's probably about 110.75, okay? I would think that it would test this moving average right here first, because when they break through, they normally come back and test. It's just a pattern that I've noticed, about like they did over here, okay? They broke through, then they came back to test it. I don't see that test yet, okay? So I wouldn't be surprised if they came back to that moving average in testing it, okay? Now, if I look even down to here, that's 109.48. This is at 109.69. So those areas are within 20 pips of each other. I would think that they would come down and test it before it continues maybe up to this ATR. You also see that it's making higher highs now, but the stochastics is not. I would be watching for that, because just as this touches the congestion dot here, you may actually get a divergence that tells you, okay, this is when they're going to come back and test for support before they continue up. But right now, I do think they will go up on the USDJPY. I just don't think it's right at this moment, okay? And again, this would be one that I would say, you know, if this turns at 110.33 and potentially will come back down to 109.69, that could potentially be a 2-hour binary. But I think the bigger move based on this weekly candle will be to the upside, and that's where I would be looking at doing the touch brackets, okay? Any questions today? I do thank all of you for joining me today and taking time out of your Sunday evening to look at Forex. Now, again, I'd like to invite you to visit my website at www.tradershelpdesk.com. Again, you can always email me at gm@tradershelpdesk.com. You can also call me at 336-263-0122. You will probably need to leave me a voicemail because I'm either trading or already on the phone, but I will get back with you. Well, thank you all for the nice comments.